Hi friends, welcome back to the channel. Everything these days seems to be really expensive at the grocery store. I often think, can I make this from scratch at home for myself? And with bread, the answer is a definite yes. It doesn't require that many ingredients. They're typically things that you may already have if you do some baking and cooking a lot at home. And it really does taste a lot better than what you can buy at the store. Now, you can also go to a bakery to get bread, obviously. However, that tends to be quite expensive when compared to the grocery store, and definitely when compared to making it from scratch at home. So today I'm going to be showing you how you can make simple at-home sandwich bread with only 6 simple ingredients that you likely already have in your kitchen cabinet. Those 6 ingredients are 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 1/3 cups warm water, 1 large egg, 2 teaspoons of yeast, 1 teaspoon of salt, and then finally 2 teaspoons of sugar. So let's jump right into it. The first thing that I'm going to do is combine 1 1/3 cup of warm water with the 2 teaspoons of yeast and then 2 teaspoons of sugar. And that will allow for the yeast to activate. And the way that you'll know that it's active is that the solution will start to bubble up. It should be obvious. If nothing happens, that means your yeast is dead. So you will need to get some new yeast, but fingers crossed that does not happen today. Okay, so first I'm going to combine the 1 1/3 cups warm water, the 2 teaspoons of yeast, and then the 2 teaspoons of sugar. And I just want to emphasize when you're getting the warm water that you don't make it too hot, because if it's too hot, it will kill the yeast and your yeast will not activate and you won't be able to make your bread. So make sure that it's warm, but it should not burn your fingers when you touch it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab that water now and add in the yeast and the sugar. Okay, going to add in the yeast. And now I'm going to add in the sugar. And so with the sugar, you can use pretty much any substitute, well, any natural substitute. So if you have honey or agave, if you would like to use that instead of regular white sugar, it will work perfectly fine. At a molecular level, all sugar is the same. And now I'm just going to mix up the yeast, water, and sugar. Okay, now I've mixed up the yeast, water, and sugar. And so I'm gonna give this a few minutes and it should start to bubble up. As I stated before, when it does activate, it should be fairly obvious. In my experience, it kind of all happens at once. And so you'll start to see a couple of bubbles form up and then the whole mixture will be kind of foaming up. So again, I'm gonna let this sit for a couple minutes, let that yeast activate, and then I'll get started going through the next steps of the recipe. Okay, it's been a few minutes and my yeast is now active. I don't know if you can see, but there are bubbles starting to form in the mixture. Like I said, it did kind of, it started to go and then the whole thing kind of started to go at once. So now I'm going to add the 1 egg and the salt and then mix that up. And so I'm just going to grab a fork and a paper towel so I can crack this egg. Okay, now I'm going to add in the egg and the salt. So let me go ahead and add the salt in. Crack the egg. Okay. Now I'm just going to basically scramble this egg up in here. And you want to be careful when you do this. It's kind of liquidy. Okay, now that I've got the egg and the salt added into my yeast mixture, I'm going to start adding in the flour. And so that I'm just going to add 1 cup at a time, and I'm going to mix it until I can get it as well mixed as I can within the bowl. And then I'm going to throw this on the counter and start kneading the dough. add in the first cup. And you're gonna get lumps and clumps in this mixture, especially when you add the first couple of cups of flour. I'm using this fork to help break up some of that, but it's gonna get kneaded regardless, so don't worry too much about that. And I'm just scraping the sides here. I just want to get all the dry ingredients in there that I can, so I'm not leaving anything behind. Dump that in there. And I'm just kind of mixing it slowly right now because I don't want to throw up the flour everywhere all over my counter. Even though I'm about to flour the counter to knead the dough, I don't want to create more of a mess than I need to. So I just want to get some of that flour mixed in before I start going crazy. Okay, as you can see, it's getting pretty thick at this point. I'm gonna mix it some more, as much as I can, but then I will plop this onto the counter. And if you happen to have a stand mixer, you can use that instead. To me, this is more fun, but I definitely understand if you don't want to go through this whole process because it's a lot of work. Okay, I'm just gonna get about a half a cup here. Well, I'm gonna get more than half a cup, probably about a cup, because I'm gonna need to flour the counter. I'm just going to sprinkle my workspace here with some flour. Want to make sure it's floured pretty well because that mixture is very sticky, and so if you just plop it on there, and I'm just gonna kind of spread this around. Make sure your counter's not wet when you do this, especially because we were just working with some wet ingredients. This part's gonna be really messy, but that's all part of the fun. Just gonna scoop this out. And now I've got my remaining last roughly half a cup, probably a little bit more than that. And I'm just gonna start sprinkling this on and try to work that into the dough a little bit. And if you are a professional baker, I'm sorry if this method is terrible, but it has worked for me, so. Okay. So now I'm just gonna start kneading it for about 3 to 5 minutes. And I'm going to be adding flour kind of as I go until it's not sticking to my hands anymore. You can see it's still sticking pretty well. So this is gonna take a few minutes. And the point of kneading it is to develop the gluten. I'm just adding a bit more flour to the counter here, and then adding more to the bread, to the dough rather. And I had to wash my hands because I had a lot of dough on them and it was sticking more to my hands than I wanted it to, so just needed to okay. This is better. And as I said, you want to keep adding flour until it's not sticking into your hands, into the counter so much. I've got it to a pretty good level now. I think just do what feels right for you. Try not to put too much, but don't be afraid to add more flour if you need to. Okay, just gonna knead for a couple more minutes now that I've got it at a pretty good level. And I'm just kind of rolling it out, pulling everything back together, doing a quarter turn, and then rolling it back out kind of with my palm. Okay. Make sure this counter is floured up a little more. Okay, now I'm starting to get to a point where it's no longer really sticking to my hands, so that's good. Sure. And I'm just gonna knead it for maybe about 40 more seconds. You don't want to over knead it, apparently. Okay, now that the dough is kneaded, I'm going to stick this into this oiled up mixing bowl, and then I'm gonna stick that in the oven for 1 hour to prove. So to warm up the oven, I just turned it on to 350, let that go for a couple of minutes, and then turned it off. And so that gets it to a temperature where it's warm enough to let the yeast do their thing in the oven for an hour, but not so warm that it's going to kill them. So once that's done, I'll pull this out and we'll go over the next steps. All right, so it's been 1 hour. The dough has risen to be about roughly twice the size as it was originally. Now I'm gonna punch the dough down and then stick it into this greased loaf pan where it will rise in the warm oven for another 20 to 30 minutes, and then it will bake for 25 to 30 minutes. Okay, just punching the dough down, and that literally just means kind of pushing it down. You don't have to actually punch it, but that's the term. Okay, and I'm going to stick my dough in this greased loaf pan, and I'm just gonna kind of push it to fill the shape here. You don't have to do this, but it's what I like to do. This is going to go back in the oven for 20 to 30 minutes to continue rising, and then it's going to bake for 25 to 30 minutes at 350 degrees. All right, this has been in the oven for about 25 minutes. You can see here that the dough has risen, and so the oven's preheating. Now I'm just going to stick this in the oven for around 25 to 30 minutes, or until there's a golden crust on the top here. All right, so this is finished baking. It took about 27 minutes. I'm going to let it cool for about 30 minutes within the loaf pan, and then I will take it out, let it cool for about 30 more minutes to an hour. I'm actually gonna give this to a friend, so I'm not going to cut it up today, but I do know that it tastes good, so I don't really have to worry about that. This is not the first time I'm making this, and hopefully they enjoy it. All right, that's it. I'm gonna go run this over to my friends and hopefully they enjoy it. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next one.